one of the original fully paid up members of the circular bioeconomy. There are about 1.2 billion sheep on the planet. They produce about 2 billion kilograms of greasy wool each year. And wool is biodegradable, it's flame resistant, it's carbon rich. 50% of its clean weight is carbon drawn down from the atmosphere. It has a long wear life, and it is one of the most reused and recycled products on the planet. And yet, wool is rated extremely poorly on the high-profile environmental ratings platforms for textiles, including the European Union's Product Environmental Footprint platform, including the French government's Anime platform, the Ecobalyse platform, and the fairly widely known Higg Index. And it's worth understanding why, because the same rules, the same accounting issues affect leather, affect red meat, affect any product which is based on a photosynthetic system. So our work shows that a primary reason for the poor accounting for these natural, renewable, biodegradable products is that the accounting standards essentially fail to distinguish between fossil carbon and biogenic carbon. So biogenic carbon is the carbon that's produced in biomass. Okay, so that's carbon dioxide drawn down from the atmosphere. They also fail to address biodegradability. And we end up in a perverse situation where in textiles, according to these systems, polyester, acrylic, nylon, fast fashion products rate as vastly less environmentally damaging than biofibres, such as wool. And this perverse situation will soon be translated to garments, product environmental labels on garments in Europe under the legislation. So a couple of years ago, with IWTO's help and support of the Italian industry, we commenced a program to apply a standard ISO 14067, which is the ISO's generic carbon footprinting standard. We've applied it to the most widely cited wool footprinting study, like Steve Wiedemann and some co-workers. We've altered on the system biogenesis. What our research shows, and here are a couple of the key facts, of the carbon that the sheep ingest, more than half of it is returned to the environment in the form of manure. The second largest return is in the outbreath, the respiration. When they breathe out, that's about 23%. The third largest component is in the urine, that's about another 7%. And the carbon that's embodied in the enteric emissions, such as methane, is about 5%. But it has a much higher weighting because of the global warming potential of methane. When we've applied this new map or understanding of where the carbon actually goes, where its fate is, you look at the emissions balance, what we show is that the assumption, the United Nations IPCC assumptions about you need to have removals must be permanent on a 20-year time frame. That single assumption has a massive impact. It's an accounting assumption, has a massive impact on the footprint. So if you assume that the farm is in a steady state, so there's no land use change occurring, there's no management change occurring, if we monitor the farm in a steady state, and you just look at the balance of the drawdowns and the emissions, what we find is if you just, ignoring manure for the moment, if you count basic biogenic function, mortalities, respiration, urine, land, milk, all those sorts of things, you reduce the reported footprint by about 20%. So for wool, that's an average of about 21, 22 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalents per kilo, down to about 18 or 17. And then if you allow for 1 in every 3 pellets of sheep manure, dung, to be retained in the system, incorporated in the soil, then you reduce it by about another 1/3. And if there's 2 pellets of dung out of every 3, then you reduce down to around about balance a carbon neutral result. We've evaluated our model with case studies, live case studies, where people have outstanding soil carbon test records. And the interesting thing is, through the most, well, I guess the largest study closest to publication, through a drought where conventional carbon accounting would say that they produced 38 kilos of carbon dioxide emissions per kilo, mostly because they brought in a lot of sheep feed. Their actual net carbon emissions were far lower because they had their sheep in confinement feedlots. The soil test results showed that their farm actually accumulated soil carbon through a drought because they had destocked paddocks. So this is a very powerful proof for us of the basic value of biological modelling when it comes to life cycle assessment. IWTO are in the process of conducting a global suite of case studies. We encourage your interest, so there's, I think, 4 on the way in South Africa, 3 in New Zealand, 3 in UK, also Australia coming on board. In each of the, due to the nature of the model, in each of these case studies, we also generate the meat emissions. That's generated. It's not reported because we're from the wool tribe, but it could be reported. So I'd encourage your interest. There's a lot to do in this space. But I really want to highlight the importance of biogenic carbon in carbon footprinting, and the fact that unless we tackle these accounting rules, our ability to support circular bioeconomy, unless we will be guilty of overstating our carbon emissions, putting pressure on governments and through their national targets to take productive land out of agriculture and put it under trees and forestry. So there is an accounting angle to this that I encourage your interest, and we're happy to share our work throughout. So, great, thank you for your attention.